On this episode, we'll discuss stewarding your church facilities to fulfill your mission. Well, hey there, and welcome to another episode of the Church Leadership Lab podcast, a show that is dedicated to inspiring leaders and empowering healthy churches. I'm Kendall Connor, and I'm joined by my co host, Jessica Moore. Hey there, Jess. How are you today?
Hey, Kendall. I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. I'm really enjoying the summer weather so far. I don't know about you.
We've had so much rain in Tulsa.
Oh, no.
Our grass is like a jungle because it won't dry. So that's my plan for this afternoon is to mow if the ground is dry enough. But to be honest, we've not had as much summer weather as I would have liked. We're just in the rain. So
Wow.
it's
Wow.
okay
Well,
though.
Well, I'm fresh off of coming from the beach, so I don't know.
Mm.
I've been enjoying and eating it up, but at the same time, you're talking about all that yard work like it's a bad thing when really that is one of my favorite things to
Hey,
do at
listen,
home.
I
So
love to mow. It's the best workout. You get tan, you get your
love it.
steps in. It's
There you
great.
go. I'm
Yeah.
telling this is just going more in part with our side podcast that we got to develop called our nature podcast that
It's
we
called
talked about
it's
last
called
week.
Outdoor with Connor and More.
There you go. I'm super impressed by that. Trademark, anyone listening to this, you can't use that.
No,
Uh,
it's taken.
Listen, we've got, a great conversation, a great topic that we're gonna get to talk through today that go beyond the outdoor, apparently, podcast that we've gotta start. We're gonna get to talk about this subject today of church facilities, and it just kinda got me thinking, when it comes to managing church facilities and all that, that's a lot of different things that can go along with that. But I just wanted to start it off kind of with something fun. I'm just kind of curious in your church experience, right? And like your
Mhm.
history with serving and attending churches, what kind of different facilities have you been in before? Has
Mm.
your church met in?
I mean, I feel like our church building right now is not massive, so I'll lead with that. There's not they're working on more and more ways to do
Yeah.
facilities, but we do have within our, church a coffee shop, and that space is
Oh,
open
wow.
throughout the week, and there's an indoor playground in there, and the coffee shop is darling. I mean, it's all set up very
Yeah, it
communally,
sounds amazing.
and so I don't know how this necessarily fits into that, but right now in our current church and in our current world, that is something
Yeah.
that operates all the time, and it does help fund the church in kind of a different, it's not like tithing and all of that. It's kind of a different bucket, a different income, if you will.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful. We go all the time. It's great.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
To tell you a little bit about our about my church experience, I grew up going to a typical brick and mortar church, so to speak, with the steeple on top, right? And that was my first introduction to really jumping into a church facility. But also for the past decade or so, I've been a part of a church plan, and so we
Mm.
spent a lot of that time bouncing around from portable facilities and schools, movie theaters, and that kind of thing. And then I've shared this on the podcast before. Not long ago, we moved into our first permanent facility. And so for the
Yeah.
very first time, we're starting to have to manage different rooms and different people using the church at different times. And so this is a very relevant conversation for me today. So I'm excited to jump into it. We've got an incredible guest. Joining us today on the podcast, we have Lee Cool from eSPACE. That's a part of Smart Church Solutions. And that's one of our partners here at Ministry Brands. And so I want to tell you a little bit about him. For the past 7 years, Lee has been serving churches and ministries all over and helping them to learn to steward their facilities, really learning how to use them well. And he's been doing that with eSpace. He is passionate about just having excellence when it comes to your operations as a church. And he really finds a lot of joy. And you'll love this, Jess, spending time outdoors on the farm
quit it.
caring for his animals, and so I know that's gonna make you love this guy right away.
Yeah, we've got chickens, Lee.
It's
We've got
gonna
a
be
little mini
awesome.
farm.
I was gonna say, you guys need to invite me on the outdoor podcast. I wanna be there
Ah,
next.
You'll be our first guest. Pinky
Lee,
I'd
swear.
be on
we're so excited to have you on here today, Lee, and maybe that's the place to start off is this the outdoor animals, before we jump into stewarding the church facilities.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, and thank you guys so much for having me, and, Jess, I wish I had your problem of having too much rain right now because 'cause we're in a total heat wave in North Carolina.
Ugh.
Kendall, you being here, you probably
Yes,
are getting it too. Uh, I live in this small mountain town called Lansing, North Carolina, and it usually never gets above 80, and it's been above 80 every day, and you're probably like,
Oh,
"That's."
man.
Jess is like, that's like regular summer for us.
It is.
And it probably you too, Kendall, but I've gotten spoiled and, my animals hate it. I have 3 Great Pyrenees and love the
Oh,
cold,
bless
and
them.
they are just not liking this. I have, 11 chicken, I have 4 ducks, 2 turkeys, 6 rabbits, a potbelly
wow,
pig, and
wow,
I just got 3 sheep, so, I'm
That's
officially on the
awesome.
shepherd status, so it's
That's
been a lot of fun.
amazing.
It's been a lot
Oh,
of
that's
fun.
my dream, but
that's
also I
awesome.
wanna be close to, like, sushi restaurants, and so we compromised. We have a house in town, and we have some chickens and a garden, so we'll see. I keep asking Jeff for a mini cow, but I don't think he's gonna accommodate my wishes.
This is amazing. That's
A dream
amazing.
is a dream.
It's true. It's true.
The closest thing we have sushi is we have a river that runs through the property, and it's great
There you
fishing,
go.
but that's all we
Right.
got.
There
Oh,
you go. That's
that's
That's all we
awesome.
got.
that's
Yeah.
awesome. Well, listen, Lee, we're so thrilled to have you on here with us today, and just to be able to talk through this topic. It's something that we always ask all of our guests is, what's something that doesn't make that public bio, and maybe it's beyond the farm animals, but is there anything else that we want to hear about you today?
The animals is a big one.
For sure.
Being I it's kinda funny, I tell people I'm a software nerd in the day, and then I get to go hang outside and be with the animals at nighttime, but I love to hunt, I love to fish, I love all the classic outdoor things. I believe in, kinda the homesteading idea and really getting back to the simple things in life, so I've been really enjoying,
Love that.
that part of my life where I'm at. It's been really cool, but I am also a triplet. That's a fun fact. So,
Wow.
non-identical. Thank God that could be dangerous. But I have 2 sisters as well, and, yeah, they are not in the mountains. They're the exact opposite of me. They're kinda city girls living in Charlotte, but, they're loving it. But, yeah, that's a little bit about me that you might not find in my bio.
Those are good
That's
ones.
yes, those are perfect answers for that. You mentioned a little bit, you love the outdoor side of it in your free time, but you also have that software side. I'm just curious to hear about your journey. You've been helping churches for years now. Think differently about their facilities and maybe some software that can help them with that. Can you just tell us what kind of brought you into that space?
Yeah, I have a really interesting journey actually, and I never thought I'd be doing what I'm doing in a million years, just to be honest with you. My father comes from a background of 30 years of building churches, like an actual construction.
Wow.
And one of the things that he saw as he was building churches is they did a really bad job at taking care of their building after it was built. They weren't
Mm,
thinking about the assets that were gonna need to be replaced 15, 20 years down the road, the ongoing maintenance, and they
Wow.
weren't considering all of the things related directly to stewardship, which frankly, if they focus on, that's just more that can go towards a healthy church's mission. So when they're doing that, there was just so many balls that were being dropped. Churches would believe we build the building, kind of like dig the well, water will come,
mm,
Yes.
and we can do nothing to maintain it along the way. So he wanted to pivot out of construction, had no software experience. And I think God put this mission in his heart and said, "Hey, Tim, you need to go and create a tool that's going to help churches store their facilities." And I don't
Wow.
think he knew what that was. He started or attempted to start the company in 2008, and our product didn't become even decent until 2015.
Wow.
So there was lots of wrestling, and I think God really put this mission in the heart to stick with it. And I was blessed to join him in 2017 of August, so coming up on 8 years now.
Wow.
Um, but this really fell in my lap as frankly, is me getting out of college and a little desperate. How can I find something to pivot to? And immediately just fell in love with the mission and
Mm.
really seeing how churches can be served, was something that impacted me really great, and if I could find serving the kingdom as well as serving my financial needs and my bills and everything else, what an incredible win. So, um,
Nah,
the the
love
passion
that.
is just blown past through that, and, it also allows me to still work with my father, day in and day out, so
That's
there's
awesome.
some beautiful connection with that too. But
I love that. And as you can imagine, we ask that question to a lot of our guests, and just hearing the stories and how God can put things in place. I mean, it's just amazing to see the journey and how faithful He can be throughout it, and how He kind of leads us to things that end up helping so many other people in their churches and communities. And I know you guys are doing that. So I'm excited to talk about eSpace, which is a partner of Ministry Brands, and
yeah.
it's just an exciting thing that we get to have you on here and talk through this stuff. Can you just tell us a little bit about, what is eSpace all about? Tell us about smart church solutions. What exactly do you guys do, and how are you helping churches fulfill their mission?
Yeah, and thank you so much for asking. I'll see. Yeah, Smart Church Solutions is essentially our parent company. So it's like
Yeah.
the overarching what we do, and then eSpace is a product that we also offer. But Smart Church Solution, our vision is to. I have this little cube here that helps remind me of our
Love
core
it.
values and
Yeah.
vision. But it's to honor God while equipping all churches to effectively steward their facility. And we do it a couple separate ways. Our main bread and butter of how we do that is providing eSpace, which is a full-blown facility management solution. It does not an amplify, it does not help with membership management, it does not help with check-in, it does not help with
Right.
any of the things related to donations or anything like that, but we focus strictly on the facilities aspect of
Mhm.
things. So what that really boils down to in eSpace is we have components for scheduling your events. So where events need to happen, which resources do we need, and also which support services need to be a part of it to assist with that.
Yeah.
And then there's
Cool.
a other side for like work order and asset management. So, think about the ongoing maintenance that goes on in a building and
Yes.
the preventive maintenance, the things that, and when we go into a little deeper talking about some of the issues that I think churches have directly with this is how are we prioritizing the things that are really important we need to do versus the urgent, hey, I have this desk fan that needs replaced and I'm going to be really loud about it versus, hey, we have all these HVAC filters that haven't been changed in 6 months.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that important versus urgent thing that I think the software helps them identify, but also helps them with asset tracking, inventory, life cycle expenditures to know, hey, in 20 years, we'll need this much money to replace the roof. We'll need this much money to
Wow.
replace the HVAC, and
Wow.
everything along those lines. It's really just meant to be a platform that allows churches specifically to steward their buildings.
That's so cool. And not
Yeah,
something I would have thought. I mean, I haven't been a in a pastoral role, but not something I would have considered to be overlooked,
yeah.
or even considered. Like, I don't even worry about that stuff in my house. Jeff changes the air filters. So, I mean, I wouldn't be a good candidate for that anyway, but that's awesome. What a great idea.
And you're absolutely right, and I think that's something a lot of people kinda take with them when they think about church facilities, and,
Yeah.
church facilities, it's not something that people are like, "Ooh, this is so exciting," like changing air filters, like,
Yeah,
it's not something people rally around and get excited, but it's something that if not managed appropriately can
Yes.
really harm that healthy church or take
right.
them downward in that slope.
Yeah.
But the churches who are prepared and planning for things, one of
Yes.
the things that I hate seeing is we need to run a capital campaign to change the air conditioning or to change the air HVAC
Right.
because
Yeah.
we didn't plan on having that
That's
money
right.
available when the air stopped, and we see that a
Mm,
lot, especially in Texas, unfortunately.
mm,
Um, but I would much rather see them be doing that for the new exciting children's building they want to do or
sure.
the important
Yeah.
missions that they'd like to do,
Yeah.
rather than repairing a building that they just haven't accounted for.
That's,
Um,
yep.
but really these churches, if you think about it, like, and just to your point, like, how often do we really think about changing our air filters or, like, even at a house, cleaning our gutters or
Right.
ensuring that our driveway is sealed so we don't have to replace pavement? But a commercial building like a church, it just has so many more layers to that. It's
Right.
not just the ongoing maintenance and things like that, but the OSHA requirements, ADA compliance for people in wheelchairs. Like, how are we actually inviting people into our facility from that first time guest perspective, as well as that ongoing just perspective of stewardship. Like we
Yeah.
take care of this and we have intentionality behind it. Um,
So much good stuff there, and I'm telling you, Lee, this is so relevant to me in my own ministry journey right now because I'm telling you, our church is not even 6 months into our first permanent facility, and for the first time, we're having to think about all of those different elements, and, we're seeing like, okay, like, yeah, that from this point forward, it's not, when you're talking about the taking care of the building and when there's a problem moving from portable to permanent, when there's a problem with the AC, it now is our problem to think about, right? And or any
Mhm,
of those different elements, or even managing things as simple as like the rooms and things like that. It is very much new for me, but I got to be honest, it's exciting, right? And I think anyone who's listening to this today realizes that yes, there's both the excitement of getting to have a facility and care for it, but there's also the responsibility side of it, right? Of making sure that you're stewarding with the blessings that God has given you, right?
mhm, mhm. Absolutely.
Well, good stuff. I know that churches, they're often focused on so many different things, and rightfully so. They're thinking about the people, they're thinking about the mission, they're thinking about all these different things. But when it comes to the operations, they're a reality, right? Facility management rarely gets the spotlight, and I'm just kind of curious, why do you think that's just such a big part of church health?
Mm, that's such a good question. I really think one of the big things behind it is it's kind of obvious when you think about it in a certain light where facilities doesn't get the spotlight unless there's an issue, right? Nobody has an incredible Sunday service and it was like, wow, the temperature was perfect. Like it was so clean in there. Like nobody walks out of the service thinking that. It's like I'm on the mountain, like everything else that happened in the sermon. It's not we're not focused on the building unless you're a psychopath like me who's just focused on buildings all the time now.
Right.
But it doesn't get the spotlight unless it's something that's very easily noticeable. And when we also offer something called facility condition assessments where churches will have us come out and be like, "Hey, we know we have these issues with this building. We have something called deferred maintenance, which is basically all this maintenance we should have done that we have deferred and now it's piling up on us and it's going to cost us more than it ever should have."
Wow.
When we come out for those kind of engagements, it's funny. Churches are typically in a 15 like post construction. It's around 20 to 25 years after, or it'll be 45, 50 years after. There's these different cycles where everything starts to break and you need to replace things. So it's very often in those cycles where we'll start paying attention to it because it's like, holy moly, I just spent over $1 million in new air conditioning. How can we prevent that from ever happening again? Let's start planning for it so we're not here again 20 years in the future and that the people who are taking our positions are not going to have to inherit this mess. So when we start thinking about that, a lot of people start paying attention to it. But really, some of the things that I think is really crucial in terms of church health with facility management is thinking about if you're a church, it's very likely you're understaffed. From an IFMA International Facility Management Association, they're kind of a more secular based facility management uh, I guess, entity out there, but they had a study that said for every 35,000 square feet a church has, that they should have one full-time employee that manages just the main or that is able to take care of the maintenance. And that doesn't include the management, somebody saying this is the priority, this is where you shouldn't go. That
Right.
doesn't include custodial or anything else. I throw that stat out there so churches will probably look at that and say, "Oh my, I know I'm understaffed on
Mhm.
facilities."
Mhm.
And it
Yeah.
is something that's underlooked, and I if you're not in that 1 to 35,000 square mark, you're likely not gonna have a healthy church facility because things will be getting deferred. You
Mm.
physically don't have the bandwidth to be doing everything.
Wow.
So why is it overlooked? I think it's very easy for things to go under the carpet for a long period of time, and I think until and I hate it for them, but until churches feel that pain point of, "Wow, I need to be doing something different," and I hate to say it, but everybody does within that 20, 25 year, 44, 50 year, in those marks, they start to feel the pain and they regret not having proper stewardship over those
Mhm.
things. So I think it's all about the urgent and important thing I mentioned earlier. It's like these are the things that we don't see every day. What I hear every day is, "Hey, there's a spill in aisle 12. We forgot a mop over here. My fan
Mhm.
needs fixed." Especially as a facilities team, you're spread very thin doing things. And we're never really focusing on the things that are going to extend the life of our buildings, extend the life of our assets and churches. And I think that's where a lot of folks miss the mark.
Hmm.
Wow. I, I'm just kind of curious, for our listeners today, what would you say are like the most common areas of stewarding your church facility well? What are the things that you need to be thinking about? You mentioned HVAC, right? What are the other areas that maybe you would bring up that our listeners should be thinking about today?
Yeah, the ones we look at are the big 3: HVAC, roof, and parking lot.
Mm,
Those are gonna be typically the most expensive items to replace, and again, it's gonna be in that similar time frame of about 15 to 25 years. There's a lot of dependencies on material manufacturers and where you are geographically. But that's typically the 3 that I'd look for. If you wanna add anything else on top of that, flooring could also get very expensive over time, especially if you're a high occupancy church and you have a lot of things going on, a lot of usage. Really paying attention to those things I think is important. But overall, I think, churches should have a plan for preventive maintenance for all aspects of their building so that they can extend the life of them. And we do have like a free preventative maintenance checklist. We'll try to add it to the show notes. Definitely recommend you guys check that out. Something that could be implemented today.
Wow, yeah, 100% we'll add that in the show notes so that they're easy to find, and
yeah.
we love sharing resources. Jess will tell you that. We love to be able to give those
Free
things out.
stuff.
Free
Yeah.
stuff is where it's at.
I love it.
Lee, I know you've probably seen the good and the bad and the ugly when it comes to, working with church facilities and those kind of things. What would you say are a few common facility challenges that you see that are holding churches back?
Staffing's the biggest. And here's the thing I think a lot of church leaders need to understand is besides your staffing, facilities is going to be the second biggest expense on your budget every year, every single
Mm,
year for what you're putting into it. Yet it's somewhere that we're just not having any intentional focus on the important things. It's really just the urgent things. As they're coming, we're knocking them out. And as I've sat down with a lot of larger mega churches that are in this exciting era of expansion, and they're buying all these new campuses, and they're getting all the new church plants and buildings, and they're
Right.
so excited. And what we're unfortunately seeing in some of those folks in those 15, 25 years marks is they're not taking care of them.
mm,
So I think it's just really important for these churches to focus on what are the things we need to do to effectively steward these buildings that we've been entrusted with to remain a healthy church. Because if we don't do it, if we don't have buildings, how can we be a healthy church? I'm
mm.
sure. Well, and just if I could be the first one to say it as well, I do not think you need a building to reach people in Christ, but it is sure a helpful tool.
Yeah.
It is
Sure.
a great way to bring people together. And
Great point.
I also think that it's primarily used, and I can give you some examples behind this. The facility can be used in a lot of creative ways for the kingdom. When we think of the women of the well, for instance, the woman wasn't going to the well to meet Jesus that day, right? She was going to the well. It was a common place in the community, and
Yeah.
she was going to the well just to get some water, right? She was there to get water, and she just so happened to meet Jesus there.
Mm,
How can we as churches create a well in our community where people are coming to get water for engagement, for community, but they just so
Wow.
happen to meet Jesus there on the impact? There was one
Wow.
church, and I'm slipping the name of it, but I think it was actually in Arlington, Texas. Um, but they actually totally redesigned their church. What they did is they kind of did a feasibility study in a way. They saw, okay, the people who come to our church are typically this father-son dynamic. It's primarily men, and they also were into hunting and fishing, and that's kind of the research they were able to gather. So what this church did, it was brilliant, is they built a giant pond out front of the church, stocked it with fish, and it became a staple in the community that a father and son would go there to
Wow.
fish on a
Wow.
Saturday
cool.
and then
Yeah.
attend church there on Sunday.
That's
So
so
that's a
cool.
healthy church if I've ever seen one because of the intentionality behind it and the proactivity to use their building or their facility as a tool for ministry.
So they were making fishers of men, is what you're telling me right now?
Oh,
Brilliant.
come on.
Couldn't
I
have said
mean,
it better myself.
That's
couldn't have said it
brilliant.
better.
I love it. For real
That's
though, that is
awesome.
so cool. That's, like,
I've never
really cool.
all this time, I've never heard of the fishing pond, example before. That's awesome. We have a church that was used to be close to our house, in our previous town. They were all about that same thing with the playground, right? They had a playground that was open to the whole community, and they used that in a similar way. But man, I just love fishing, so I love that example.
Yeah,
Yeah,
see, and I love coffee, so our church has the coffee shop
Yeah, that's
with
it.
the
That's
indoor
it.
exactly.
playground, which doesn't get as much use in the summertime until it gets really hot, but in the winter, mamas are in there all
Yeah,
day, and they're
I
meeting
bet.
Jesus in the quiet of their children playing in the indoor closed-in playground.
I
It's
love it.
great. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
great.
it's amazing.
I'm gonna jump in super quick and just my brain has been thinking, and Kendall knows, like, my heart is generosity in the church. That's what I'm most passionate about.
Yep.
But, um I keep hearing you saying stewardship, and this is something that my brain hasn't gone outside of, stewardship in the financial sense. And this is
Yeah.
such a cool concept that definitely needs to be included. And if anyone's listened to this podcast and I've talked about generosity before, you know that transparency is a big part of this.
Yep.
And so I we haven't talked about this yet. I would imagine that sometimes, right, finances are part of the issue in keeping your buildings maintained.
Mm.
And so the idea of kind of backing way out of this and saying if you are going to make a shift towards preventative maintenance for your church, including the transparency of what you find out from either you guys or just doing your own research in your area, but once you find out what it will like in 15 years, what will we need to replace, what can we anticipate, that level of transparency speaks a huge level of responsibility, right? That transparency, you are being transparent about your responsibility with the finances that people are putting in towards the church. And sometimes it's a little bit easier for people to attach their hearts and their minds to a physical tangible goal for
Yes.
like a physical tangible thing, right? So yes, we can give to missions and that's super important, and God, and that those are Holy Spirit led moments 100%. I think sometimes logically though too, we can look and say, I love this church. I love what it brings to our community. I love what it brings to our people. And if the roof falls off, then
Yes.
we won't be able to do what we do. And I
That's right.
know roofs cost like that part feels more logical than less emotional to
Yeah.
me. And it's not something that I feel like is talked about enough. Maybe I'm crazy, but I feel like, our church doesn't necessarily, we usually talk about the more emotionally driven projects that we have versus the well, not even emotionally. Like right now, we're doing an expansion campaign. So that's, but we can see that we're all squished in this building
Right.
like sardines and we need to expand. I mean, that's, fairly logical too. But you guys know what I'm trying to say. I'm just processing this out loud
Yeah.
and in like,
Yeah.
how are we communicating this to our congregations? Like, it's one thing to know it, but then how do we communicate it? And we may be about to dive into that, but I'm just thinking out loud here.
To even
No.
expand on that, and Lee, I don't wanna take away, but just really quickly, doesn't it just seem so much put you in so much of a better place to communicate, "We're
Yes.
preparing ahead of time," rather than scrambling
Yes.
at the end and trying
Yes.
to find that solution. Go ahead, Lee.
No, and Jess, that's the number one problem I think churches run into is how do we
Mm,
communicate this to everybody else?
Yeah.
And how do
yeah.
we make sure that they know that this is important too? Here's another kind of fun stat I'll throw at you. This is also from the secular kind of FMO facility management market, but every $1 in maintenance that's deferred, so the churches that aren't doing preventative maintenance or anything else, is going to cost them $4 down the road. So
Wow.
by doing the easy thing today or by ignoring to do so,
Mm.
will quadruple in the cost down the road. Simple
Yikes.
example. Let's going back to your home. Let's say I can buy an air filter for $12 and I can change my air filter in my HVAC. Well, what if I
Right.
want to save $12 every quarter and I just don't want to do that? Do you think that's actually gonna save me money, or do you think in the long haul, that's gonna cost me significantly more because now my air conditioning unit's gonna have to work harder and its life cycle is gonna be significantly
Yeah.
reduced?
Very
So
true.
now I'm gonna have to buy a new one sooner. So rather than that air conditioning list unit lasting me 20 years, it may only last 8 to 10. Or I may have to get a new compressor sooner than later, new parts for it, and XYZ. Now I have these costly repairs that I run into. So Jess, I think to your point, some of the things that helps communicate that is when people actually understand this is a commercial facility. Like we are a church, but like this operates and runs like a commercial facility and asset, and we
Yes.
need to treat it as such. And I think by having a plan, being able to at least present that plan, what people lack is the education. It's not that
Exactly.
it's like once you hear it, it's like that makes so much sense,
Yeah.
Right.
but people don't have that education because it's one of those, again, urgent and important. And I get this idea, if anyone's familiar with Stephen Covey, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People,
Mhm.
awesome book,
Mhm.
classic. But it's these 4 quadrants he has of like urgent and important, and it's like 4 squares. Down here you have the non-urgent, non-important stuff, and
Mhm.
then up here you have the urgent, non-important stuff, and then here you'd have the important, non-urgent stuff, and then you have urgent and important.
Mm,
The urgent, non-important down here, or the important, non-urgent down here is what churches are often missing, and it's
mhm.
it's it's always because of lack of education or lack of staff. It's always one of those 2 things when we see it from our research. So
Wow.
when we see that, we're able to identify, okay, if you have a lack of staff, where can we assist you in automating some of these things? With
Yeah.
technology and everything we have nowadays, there's so much we can automate. Like even with our platform, eSpace, we have the ability to tie into a church's scheduling component and link that to their air conditioning. So rather than traditionally, a facilities guy will have to run around programming thermostats all day, or they have to program a computer basically that says every week this is when air
Right.
conditioning is coming on and off. And then if an event cancels last minute, which that never happens in church, then, we have to change that, or the air conditioning is gonna be running when it's not supposed to. But
Right.
we sync that up, and then that helps churches save anywhere between 8 and 10 hours a week in time, and then another, like, 20% on utilities. Like, there's certain very low-hanging fruit that I think if churches this doesn't require additional capital or money. It's really just taking a look at our current processes and systems and seeing how can we be a better steward with what is out there today.
Yeah.
And it comes with
Wow.
education and really
Wow.
learning what is there.
Mm,
And then I think if you can implement the savings you get over implementing education into what you're referring to, Jess, is what we call the capital reserve account or capital funds. Saving that into that, you kind of when things hit the fan bank account, you
mhm.
have that money available.
Yeah.
Um,
Wow.
so hopefully that wasn't too long-winded.
Nope,
No,
that's great.
that yeah. It's great stuff you shared here. I'm just kinda curious to hear from your perspective. What message would you say caring for your facility, how your facility looks, how it's cared for, how it's stewarded, what would you say, what message does that present intentionally or unintentionally about what a church values?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest piece too is that first time guest experience. Whenever we do our facility assessments, we'll point things out that are very obvious, but because these people walk by them every day, that scrub on the wall has been every day, or that stain in the ceiling is there every day, we stop seeing it. So
Yeah,
it's actually the people who go every Sunday, they may not notice, but
right.
who does notice is your first time guest.
Mm,
Yes,
So being a healthy
yes.
church and somebody who wants to grow and not just their impact, but also the reach of people who come to their facility, you need to have these things in check, or you'll have first time guests that come and guess what? Oh, that facility was gross. I got to go tell my friends. I couldn't figure out the parking lot. The wayfinding instructions were awful. I couldn't figure out where it was going. The restrooms were disgusting.
Mhm.
The
yeah.
list of things that could distract somebody from receiving
Mhm.
the word of God is huge.
Yeah,
It's huge. And
Mm,
I don't know about you guys, but when I go to a new church, and I'm a facility guy, but I look at everything and I feel like the devil can distract me in so little details with the baby crying and the
yeah,
the temperature being off, whatever it is.
yes.
But with facility, there's so many things to look at that could just take you off from, I think, where we're supposed to be in terms of the headspace of, hey, I'm here to worship. I'm here to be in church. I'm not here to have a distraction, and I want to be able to come here to see God, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I love that answer, and, I think something that I've shared with our team, our volunteers at our church is that everything speaks, whether you want it to or not, and when people walk in and they see things, it's either gonna communicate something positive or it's gonna communicate a negative message, and at the end of the day,
Yeah.
I want our people who walk through the doors of our church, I want them to know that we care, right? We
Mhm.
care about whether when they walk through those doors, when they show up, and so, yeah, taking care
Yeah.
of those small things makes a big difference.
And just adding to that, Kendall, so Andy Stanley, I think he's the one that says it, it starts in the parking lot. Of course, I twist it and think from a facilities perspective, like, how is the quality of your parking lot? No, but it is that first experience. You
100%.
you only have and I forget what it is psychologically. I'm not one of those majors, but I think you have what 2 minutes to create a first impression for somebody.
Mm,
So
Yeah,
your first impression getting out of the car, what's the first thing you see? You're gonna see your greeters, hopefully. You're gonna be able to see, hopefully, wayfinding where you're supposed to go, but you're looking at the building. You're looking at the
yes,
envelope outside of the building as you're walking into this thing, and you're creating your first impression right there in the parking lot.
that's right.
So I think it's more important than anything to be able to maintain that first impression and have your church share the story of we're intentional and we care.
I love that, and I just wanna encourage some of our listeners today. You may hear some of these things like the air conditioning or the parking lot or the roof and think like, "Okay, well, those are huge steps, big financial commitments." But I just wanna remind you, going back to the parking lot, even the small things of caring for your facility, like, okay, you may not be able to put in the budget this year to repave your parking lot, but you can go out there and make sure that your facility is clean, that your parking lot doesn't have
Mm.
trash and debris and all of those different elements, and it starts with the small things, and even those small things communicate so much.
I'll give them another layup. So one of the things that grinds my gears when I pull up to a church for the first time and they have the parking out front and it says first time visitor. I don't like that.
Oh.
We're guests. We're guests. We're first time guests. I'm not a
Oh,
visitor.
Oh,
It's a
okay.
first time guest experience.
I
And it
love that. Okay.
maybe that's me just being finicky, but there's so many things I think could add to that first time guest experience.
Yeah, no,
Uh,
I'm with you. I was like, "Wait, we talk about these signs all the time. Tell me more. Why do we hate it?" Yes, I got it. It's like my pleasure, Chick-fil-A
Yeah.
style,
that's
like,
it. Yeah,
Well,
next
yeah.
level.
when I have, like, people over in my house to stay, they're not a visitor, they're my guest. Like, you know,
Mm,
and people who
Oh, I
come to my
love that.
church aren't just a visitor, they're my guest,
yeah,
and I want them to feel that way.
love it.
Oh, I love that. Love a I'm passionate about guest experience and welcoming people into the church, and so yes, I definitely get the language in that is very important. Lee, I'm kind of curious. What would you say are some of the mindset shifts that pastors or ministry leaders kind of need to take in order to see that facilities aren't just about a building, right? That they can be a part of helping people get discipled. They can further the mission and help in that strategy.
Yeah, I mean, it's so hard to change your mindset, but I think facing reality is one of the best ways to do it. I'll ask churches sometimes, when was the last time you had a checkup for your building? When was the last time you've had, if not a somebody who works on churches, when have you had somebody actually come out and say, here's what I really think the condition of your building's like, and not the local guy you hire who sees it every day, because they're going to
Mm,
have a completely different perspective. And I hate to say it, but most people who are helping out with the facility, who aren't a dedicated facility manager, and even some of those, they're not really qualified to tell you that.
mm,
And you need to find somebody who is. Have somebody come out and really get a good idea of where you stand today. Do you have any deferred maintenance? I guarantee you do.
mm,
Every church, we haven't assessed a single church that doesn't have deferred maintenance.
mm.
Um, and I think having a checkup for your facility will help you face reality in a way that you've never seen it before.
Wow.
Um,
Getting
that's what
that
I would highly
outside
recommend.
perspective sometimes can just be helpful, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. But changing perspective, I think just focusing on, uh, not just thinking the building of the building is this is what we have to sweep and mop to make sure people can come in,
Right.
but this is a tool for ministry. How can we best steward
Mm,
it? How can we really take this thing seriously? And when I mean take it seriously, I mean also if you're an executive pastor, lead pastor, the people who help oversee that building, the volunteers, if it's the staff that help do it,
Yeah.
are they serious? And it's really digging into that. Do they have the education to store that thing properly? If they don't, we have something new called eSpace University. You should go check it out. It's like it's not about our software.
that's
It's just
awesome.
like here's the stewardship you need to do if you
Wow.
haven't. And we have a ton of free stuff there too. But
Oh yeah, we gotta
um,
we gotta link that up in the show
That's
notes for
awesome.
sure.
Yeah.
yeah, it's just these are things volunteers can learn, right?
Mm,
Yeah.
Like it's not like you need somebody who goes to school for this, but it's just about simply shifting, getting the awareness, and absorbing the information.
I feel like that's huge too, because as you're sitting here talking about these things, I'm thinking, man, there's so much opportunity to get people involved with it. Because as a lead pastor or an executive pastor, these things may not be something that you're particularly passionate about, right? It may not be your thing, but I guarantee, in your house, right, in your church, there are folks that would be passionate about it, and that's when you're able to bring people along and get people involved in ministry and kind of share some of that ministry with others, right?
Mhm. Absolutely.
Well, I know a lot of churches, just to be honest with it, when it comes to facilities, they feel overwhelmed. You talked about it. They're under resourced. They don't have enough people. What would you say is maybe some small steps that they can take towards better stewarding their facilities?
Oh, yeah. I mean, downloading that preventative maintenance checklist is a great start, even if it's something that's passed on to volunteers to help out around a building. Again, that's going to be the high ROI stuff if you're looking at the long term in terms of the 15, 20-year mark.
Yeah.
Doing those small things will save significant amounts of money that won't always be in your face, but it's very, very important. Uh,
Yeah.
the other thing is just automate, 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 automate. Let it be through your church management software, through Amplifier. Let it be through the facility management software, eSpace, that we provide. There's so many different tasks and components where I see churches specifically spending way too much time in administrative tasks where they can focus more on their mission by automating a lot of those things. So I would really take an audit and say, where are we spending our time from an individual perspective, and what of those things could be automated so we can focus back more on our mission? Because there is a lot of overwhelm, and I think church leaders especially wear lots of hats. And
Mm.
especially if you're a church leader that doesn't have somebody dedicated in facilities, it's how can we make sure that all the important things are being done, that we are being good stewards, and we're not losing all of our manpower that should be going to missions, because that's
Yeah.
also something that needs to be juggled.
Yes.
So it's really just being able to say, and I think automating HVAC is a great place to start, because that also will typically give churches a very large chunk of change back on their
Mm.
utility bill as well as save time. So I think that's a very low hanging fruit. Even having an energy audit done to just see where can we save more on utilities. Churches greatly spend too much on energy.
Mm.
So seeing that kind of cost reduction helps them have more bandwidth so they can potentially hire more people to assist them with those important things. So I think it depends on each church, but there's definitely lots of levers to pull. It all just
Yeah.
starts with being aware of what your current state is and going from there. But there's typically not a one size fits all solution for churches, just given the state of where they're all at, given their staff size, given how they operate, and everything else in between the lines there.
Yeah, I can see how churches are not super energy efficient. Like that's again something that doesn't cross my mind when I'm there on a Sunday morning. It will now, thanks to you, Lee. But generally speaking, I mean, lights are on all the time.
Mhm.
Like air conditioning. Our church again stays open all week long. It's never not open. I mean, it's not open at night, but it's open all the time.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, even things like I don't know if this is an old wives' tale, but like when you leave stuff plugged in, even if it runs at a low, like, right, energy level, and I'm thinking, like, all the sound, all the AV stuff, like, all of that, is there a way to I don't know. I'm really in the weeds at this point, but I'm like, yeah, even in our house, like, we leave fans and lights on all the time. I'm yelling at my kids all the time, "Turn the light off, turn the fan off," and we've got our AC on, energy efficiency or
Right.
whatever. But, yeah, as a church, I can't imagine having to be the pastor that's thinking about all those things. That's not even logical, right? So you're absolutely right. There has to be someone that when they wake up in the morning, this is what they're thinking about, and this is how they're being good stewards of the church. There is so much opportunity to automate all of this stuff. I
I knew
mean,
you'd get excited about the automation part.
yeah, well,
Yes.
I love efficiency just as much as generosity. Here we go. But no, it's true. It's true. You can lean into so many of the tools that you already have to just set up like simple reminders for this stuff. And then two, just, separately speaking, like I was teasing earlier that Jeff does all the air filters. Well, he would probably forget if we didn't have, an auto renewed
Yes.
order every month on Amazon that our
Right.
filters come and then it's like the next step is actually getting them in the thing. But
Right.
it's there. And so it's an automatic reminder for us to go ahead and do it. So this is one of those things that's like simple. Once the light bulb comes on, you're like, no pun intended, but once the light bulb comes on, you're like, oh, this is simple. It's not
Exactly.
necessarily easy to shift your mindset there, but it's a simple concept that just needs to be adopted and then evangelized. And that's kind of the other piece that you're talking about. Like, how do we then tell the people? How do the people get on board? Yeah,
So I'll share something with you that's kind of neat. So we do like these case studies where we go and see, hey, after a year after a church has implemented, like eSpace for automating their
Yeah.
HVAC. There
yep,
was this one we did in Houston, St. Ignatius of Loyola. So they initially got an energy audit, and they were able to identify, oh wow, we're not doing a good job at controlling our HVAC. So just similar story of you. The whole building was cool all the time, regardless of what was going on.
sure.
So they'd turn it on in the beginning of the day, all units all day, and the end of the day,
Mm,
if they remember, they turn it off. And
mm-hmm,
a lot of the time it
mm-hmm.
would just run all night.
Yeah,
Um, they just by tying their thermostats to their calendar that they were using, this just happened to be eSpace. There's lots of tools you can do this with though. But once they tied their calendar to their HVAC, they were able to save 40% on their utility bill. It equated like $70,000 of just on utility bill, and they saved
40%.
like yeah, and they saved all
There's your
this
staff
time.
member. There's your
I,
next staff member. There's
that's what
your
I'm
youth
saying.
pastor. There's your
Yeah.
right?
Dang.
And that's that and that's just reflective of the HVAC. That's not to
Yeah.
Right.
mention some of the things they're gonna start automating with their lights now, because also people leave their lights on all the time. There's just so many different pieces that I think churches don't think about.
Is
It's
there
just
somewhere
overlooked.
where you guys like host those any of those case studies that people can
Yeah,
see?
we have them all on our website. I would be
Okay.
glad to
So
add them in
we'll
show notes or wherever.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, we can
that'd
definitely
be
include
so
some of
helpful.
those. Well, Lee, you've brought up so much good stuff today. Something that we always ask all of our guests that come on the podcast, one of the big themes for us on our show is healthy churches, healthy leaders. And I'm curious, just in your opinion, what would you say is an essential component of a healthy church?
A healthy church has a healthy facility. That's the easy one for me. But I
I had a
genuinely
feeling
think
you might go in that
Yeah,
direction with
that's
the
same.
I'm a little biased, may I say. But no, I genuinely think a healthy church, there's so many components to it. I think a lot of it stems back to stewardship, though, as Jessica mentioned. I mean, I think stewardship is such a huge component of a healthy church.
Yeah.
And I think a healthy church that really recognizes stewardship does recommend the large piece that facilities has to play in it
Mm,
and is very intentional about looking at those things under the hood.
yeah, good call.
It's great. Well, we'd love to wrap up with a final five rapid fire round. Lee, are you up for the challenge?
How fun. I'm ready for it.
Okay. All right. What's one book on this subject or similar that you'd recommend to church leaders?
Again, I'm biased, but entrusted by Tim Cool. He is my father who came from the construction experience and wrote a whole book on stewardship for his building, includes a bunch of good facts, national benchmarking that you can use that's still relevant today.
Nice.
Definitely check it out.
That's awesome. Okay. What is the last thing you listen to on Spotify and or Apple Music or wherever you listen to music? And you can't lie. I see your smile.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was gonna be like, oh, I listened to a church podcast, but it had to be anything Morgan Wallen, something Morgan Wallen for sure. But yeah, I love my Morgan Wallen, but I do also like listening to sermons as I can.
Good balance. I love it.
That's a good balance.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I love asking people this question and then watching their faces. Sometimes they're like, ooh, or they're like, oh yeah, I'm really confident about my answer. That's great. Okay, what is your favorite piece of technology or software right now?
You mean besides eSpace or Amplify? Um, that's tough. I mean, it's probably the same answer you're getting from everybody, but ChatGPT. I think it's
Mm,
awesome. I
we
use it
do
for
get
so
that quite a
much.
bit. Mhm,
I use it for so much. But no, I think eSpace and Amplify are also incredible tools I'd recommend for a healthy church.
mhm, agreed. Okay, what is a quote or advice that has stuck with you over the years?
Oh, I read this book called Essentialism one time, and I'm going to butcher how it was quoted, but saying yes to something is saying no to something else.
Mm,
And I think that falls back in that urgent, important kind of a quadrant. And I like looking back at that a lot, but it's so easy to say yes to things in front of you. I used to be I'm a recovering yes man, and I've gotten really good at saying no. And I love that piece of advice.
age does that to you, man. I feel like I have too. Like people are like, "You want to go to dinner at 8 p.m.?" I'm like, "No, that is not my best yes." I'm not, I'm not going to do that with you. Okay, what is one thing that you would like to communicate to our audience of church leaders?
Yeah, if I can nail it in your head, seek the important over the urgent.
Mm,
Working in ministry feels understaffed and overwhelming. It does. Just remember your calling, and to be able to have the highest impact on your calling, you really need to zoom out some time and focus on the
mm,
important.
yeah.
You really got to. If you don't do that, you're missing out on a huge piece of the kingdom that I think God is wanting you to go into.
Mm,
And I've found this in my own self where if I'm just focused on the things that hit me every day, how God can use me is very limited. But when I zoom out and often look at the important things and meditate and pray on the direction He wants me to go, I feel much more confident in my impact and directions for the kingdom.
I needed that
Great
today.
answer.
That's awesome. Thank
Great
you.
answer.
Yeah.
Lee, this has been awesome. I know that people will want to learn more, want to hear more from you. Where can folks follow you? Where can they stay connected with you and all the good things you're doing at eSpace?
Oh, go connect with me on LinkedIn. I am on there, just Lee Cool. The last name is spelled Cool. It's funny, people would joke with me and call me Dr. Cool or Mr. Cool.
What a great
That
name. Truly, though,
that's
that's so fun.
totally acceptable if you wanna call me that, by the way, but, you can find us there, and you can also follow everything we're doing at Smart Church Solutions. We're on LinkedIn and all the socials as well, or on our website, and, tons of free resources on there for, again, we're hoping to equip all churches, even the ones that can't afford it. So, please go find
Love your
free
heart in that.
resources that we have, and, yeah, keep up with us. Thank you.
Very cool. Well, we'll definitely share all of those links and everything in the show notes for all of our listeners to grab. Lee, thank you so much for joining us on here today. It's been great to have you on here.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kendall and Jess. I've had a blast.
Yeah, this was fun. Thanks,
It's
Lee.
been a lot of fun, and I think all of our listeners. I don't know if about them, but for me, it's just kind of illuminating. It's been kind of a good thing to think about that I haven't thought about for our own church. Some of these elements, and so I hope it's been beneficial to all of you listeners at home. I would say this, be sure to check out those resources. We'll link all of those up, and if you have been encouraged or resourced, or you just feel like this has been valuable to you, definitely would you consider sharing it with a friend that's in ministry? It goes such a long way when you help us to get the word out about the show, because we just love equipping leaders just like you. We love getting the word out and helping churches just to be better. And we're hoping to just continue to provide those resources to you. And so every little bit of sharing goes a really long way. Definitely be sure to hit that follow button so that you're subscribed and you can get all of our resources as we're releasing them, because we just love equipping you right where you are in your city as you're ministering to your community. Hey, until next time, keep leading well, and we will see you right back here next week on Church Leadership Lab.
This episode of the Church Leadership Lab podcast is brought to you by Ministry Brands, the largest provider of church technology software. Over 90,000 churches rely on Ministry Brands for their single platform solution that brings together all the digital tools a church needs. From online giving to websites to church management software and more, Ministry Brands is leading the way in simple to use, innovative solutions, all with the goal of empowering healthy churches. To learn more, visit ministrybrands.com.